All right, so we did our case study on eVTOL integration at South Suburban Airport, which is based off of the Chicago area.
I will introduce some overview of case of eVTOLs at Chicago Region 18 Third South Suburban Airport. It is aims to reduce congestions in Midway and O'Hare to reduce typical middle mile transport, eVTOLs instead of trucks. How can eVTOLs be successfully integrated? The overall goal is to reduce carbon emissions by introducing eVTOLs as more environmentally sustainable solutions. Incorporating eVTOLs at SSA and within the Chicago region will also support the United Nations mission of building a resilient infrastructure that will help promote inclusivity, sustainability, and innovations in industrialization.
Okay, thank you. And then it is me, Qihang. Through frequent appearance at exhibitions such as the China International Supply Chain Promotion Exhibition, we can find more and more companies and people like developing and using eVTOL because of these advantages. The first advantage is that the electric semi-trucks are over $300,000, while eVTOLs are around 170,000. And also compared with the traditional aircraft internal combustion engine propulsion system, the energy cost of electric propulsion system is only 30% of the former, and the efficiency of the electric propulsion system is 2 to 4 times that of internal combustion engines. According to a study by Boeing, a 4-seater tiltrotor eVTOL aircraft can reduce operating costs by about 26% compared to the Robertson R44 helicopter with piston engines. The structure of the electric propulsion power system is simpler and the maintenance cost is lower. In a word, the general cost is lower. And the last point is that because of the small size, it doesn't require a traditional runway and can be better achieve door-to-door logistics services. Adopting electric drive, eVTOL doesn't generate direct exhaust emissions, which reduces pollution. This electric aircraft can also allows for quieter operation, so it do be environmentally friendly. Traditional rotary wing aircraft have a longer range, while eVTOL aircraft have a short range. Their main application target is urban transportation. So the relationship between eVTOL and traditional wing aircraft is more complementary than competitive, and its goal will not have a significant impact on the traditional aircraft. This is also the reason why most router manufacturers welcome rather than reject eVTOL aircraft. So almost everyone welcomes the eVTOL.
So our solution for this case study was to divide the airport into two separate sections, one for regular aviation and another for the eVTOLs. Separate sections are necessary because of separate regulations. It would make things move easier. And this technology is so new that there may be a new type of infrastructure needed for this airport. It would also cause less confusion and chaos to keep the two sides of the airport separate as well.
So one of the parts of the airport is the regular aviation side of the airport of South Suburban Airport. So this side will include a control tower, just like a typical airport would. And it would also include a main building with gates for planes to depart and arrive from. And then the main building and control tower will be energy efficient and will be LEED certified. LEED meaning leadership in energy and environmental design. This is very commonly used throughout the world, and there's a lot of LEED certified buildings. So this SSA airport would be a LEED certified building, meaning that it's more sustainable. And then this side of the airport will also have takeoff and landing strips, and then there would be electric vehicles for transportation of goods between this side of the airport and the other side. The other side of the airport is the eVTOL side of the airport of South Suburban Airport. This will have multiple launch pads. Launch pads will be equipped with chargers too, which allows for efficient charging of the eVTOL aircrafts. And then the chargers will be solar powered too, so it's very sustainable that way with clean energy and power. This side of the airport will also have an intelligence logistics system, which is responsible for looking at the scheduling of flights between these eVTOLs, between the airport and distribution centers throughout the Chicago region. And then again, there will be electric vehicles for transportation of goods, electric trucks, electric forklifts for easy maneuver of goods back and forth between the regular aviation side and the eVTOL side of the airport.
The airport will also have an intelligence logistics system. This will have technology that can efficiently optimize delivery times, look at real-time data and historical data and predictive traffic, which will help make the airport run smoother. And artificial intelligence can plan the perfect route. So it finds the best route and stops for efficient delivery. You don't want to have wasted trips, wasted time. It can plan if something needs to be picked up and make the route the most efficient that it can. And it also looks at severe weather impacts and other scenarios like busy air traffic. If there's a windstorm that it can predict coming up, you obviously wouldn't want to send the eVTOLs out in that. It could risk damage, or it could just risk the damage to the goods as well as the eVTOLs.
And this is like kind of like a general cost structure of what the project would cost for the integration of eVTOLs or for this new airport in South Chicago or in the Chicago region. It's projected to cost around $1.5 billion to build South Suburban Airport. It's a typical regional airport cost is around $800 million to $1 billion. But based off runway costs, new technology, and the eVTOL costs, we wanted to increase the cost a little bit more to accommodate for these new expenditures for this new airport. So that's why it's a little bit more expensive than the typical regional airport when building it. This regional airport is just for the Chicago region, meaning that it only serves within the Chicago region. It's not an international airport, meaning it doesn't have flights connecting from all over the world. And then we can kind of plan on having this airport implemented between 2030 and 2035. We're still waiting for approval from federal, state, and municipality governments because there's still a lot of debate between different regulations on these eVTOL aircrafts. And then we still have to wait for technological advancements too with these eVTOL aircrafts because they're still in the development phase. So this is just pretty much why we chose to separate SSA. It was kind of like in the introductory part of our presentation a little bit. But one of the reasons why we decided to split it is because of differing regulations. So existing Federal Aviation Authority regulations within the United States only accounted for traditional airplanes and aircrafts and mines. The existing rules do not anticipate for pilots to have a powered lift certification process. Power lift refers to a vehicle that takes off in helicopter mode, transitions into airplane mode for flying, and then back into helicopter mode for landing. So we have to look at certifying pilots to fly these kinds of eVTOLs throughout the nation or throughout the world, and they would have to attain a powered lift certification. And then eVTOLs were classified under Part 23 of the FAA statutory code too, meaning it's just like a rules and regulations regarding aircrafts. This section related to smaller aircrafts and that operate as airplanes. And it was usually 19 passengers or 19,000 pounds is like the maximum. And that would be considered under Part 23 of the statutory code. But now eVTOLs are classified under the code 21.17 as very light airplanes. So this has been applied to drone certifications as well. So the certifications and the there's different regulations when it comes to these eVTOL aircrafts, and there's still development happening with these.
So there are some other challenges that are associated with the eVTOLs, such as cold weather and extreme temperatures that may cause the eVTOL to fail. Wind is another challenge with these eVTOLs. As Noah just explained, they're very light, so low altitudes combined with the wind, specifically in Chicago, may cause issues, especially when combined with the cold winter temperatures. And current infrastructure throughout the region is not fully developed yet, which is another challenge. Where will these eVTOLs take off and land from when they are delivering to these warehouses? And eVTOLs are not entirely zero emission vehicles unless they are charged sustainably, such as through solar power charging.
So I'm just going to briefly talk about eVTOL worldwide integration and implementation too throughout the world and how it could be incorporated in different countries other than the US. Last time we talked about standardized shipping containers and how this could be a game changer, similar to how cargo ships are shipping products back and forth between different countries. There's a standardized container for that. So we kind of talked about having a standardized shipping container, and one company is already doing that, Elroy Air. So we could have a standard cargo shipping container for eVTOLs, which can help ship small, low-value goods. An example could be the cargo container technology that Elroy Air is using. Elroy Air developed the Chaparral cargo container. It has a palletized cargo container for heavier loads. And it also has an express pod for lighter loads. The cargo container can hold up to 300 pounds, and it's made of light metal and plastics. And then it can also range by size, small, medium, or large. And it's very detachable it can be detachable from the aircraft itself. So it allows for smooth transportation back and forth between different areas of the airport, but also through the different regions. It's also capable of landing in parking lots and any platform too. So that could also solve the infrastructure problem a little bit as well. And then the International Transport Agency can also help implement safety and operating procedures at international airports with eVTOLs. They are responsible for instilling technical standards for safety and operating procedures at international airports throughout the world. It was formed in 1975 and has an association of 300 plus airline companies, and it represents around 83% of the total air traffic in the world. So this could be a very great potential for the advancement of worldwide integration is using this agency. And it also focuses on aviation topics set forth by many international regulations regarding safety and security, airport operations, infrastructure, sustainability, and much more. And then IATA is also currently working collaboratively with airports, airline companies, customers, and governments to implement eVTOLs across the world too. So they're looking at different regulations and laws regarding this eVTOL technology, so it could be easily implemented throughout the whole world. And they also follow the UN
30 seconds left.
Development goals. That's pretty much it. That was questions. Okay. Just wrapping it up.
Okay, great. All right, thank you very much for that presentation. Now we're going to go directly to the questions and answers period, and we'll start with Richard. Richard, do you have any questions?
Yes. Thank you very much for this presentation. I must say it's just looking at the pictures, it's very cool and an exciting new technology. Of course, with any exciting new technology, there are often more questions than answers. And I just had a few, I have a few. I guess the first, I'm just taking them in the order of the slides. I was wondering, when comparing the cost of this technology versus trucks, whether it's fair to just look at at the capital cost or the acquisition cost of one of these versus one truck, when the truck can handle probably 10 times as much cargo as one of these. So isn't the real measure a comparison of what the cost would be per unit and distance? I mean, sometimes they look at things like ton miles or, measures like that, rather than one of these costs 150,000 and a truck costs 300,000. But of course, the truck can haul 10 times as much. So have you taken a look at that as a measure of, good comparison of other modes of transportation?
I haven't looked especially like into the specifics of like the tons per mile and costs
Yeah.
like that, but I know like it's very expensive, a little bit expensive for the initial investment in this technology and for the EV tolls, but it has a lot of return on investment because you're
Yeah.
not spending money on gas and emissions. Because like for regular aircrafts and airplanes, you're spending money on gas for almost every trip that you take. For the EV tolls, you're pretty much just paying for electricity, and the electricity could be free because it's at the airport,
Yeah.
with solar panels. So that could have a return on investment right there. I don't know if that might answer your question.
Yeah, that's a good, that leads me right into the next question, which is capital cost. As I was listening, it's going to cost over $1 billion to develop the cargo side of the airport. And then we're going to have the cost of operations. The operator is going to have to pay for rent and maintenance. It's going to have to acquire the equipment, the licensing rights for the technology. There are going to be a lot of capital costs connected with this, at least in the startup phase. So I guess it's a question of, have you looked at that versus the feasibility, I mean, as an element in the whole feasibility of this? Is it going to, when you start adding all those costs up, is it going to get to the point where the per unit cost is just not going to work when it comes to, anything but maybe the highest value commodities?
I think honestly, like for the funding part of that, for like the big capital investments, I feel like there's so much room and opportunity to find grants, and you can get money from the governments too, whether it be the US or worldwide, because a lot of the governments worldwide and the United Nations want to see sustainable developments. So I feel like it's a matter of like cost versus sustainability. What do you want to see more of? And I feel like a lot of people are more prone to sustainability than maybe costs. I don't know. That could be something along what I was thinking. If anyone has anything else to add, that would be great too. That's what I was kind of
Anybody
thinking.
else want to jump in on this? No. Okay. I guess, do you envision this being inbound and outbound? In other words, would the how do you pronounce it? EVTOL? Would the cargo coming into the terminal also be on these kinds of vehicles, or would that come in by truck and go out by? How would the goods get to the airport, and then how do you conceive this? Is it just as a one-way, or is it two-way, or inbound and outbound? And what's your concept there?
I can take this one. So our idea for this airport was a lot of cargo comes in on airplanes. So our original idea is to have the cargo go from the airplane to the eVTOL, and the eVTOL to the distribution centers. However, the eVTOLs can also do like backhaul loads too, where they can go from a distribution center, or they can stop somewhere along the way. If something needs to be brought back to the airport, shipped to the airport, it could be used very not fluidly, but it would have a lot of uses not just bringing stuff from the airport to a distribution center.
Uh-huh.
I was about to say, like, we don't want to waste a lot of like the flight times, like we want every flight to be useful because any waste is not a great thing. You don't make any profit from waste. So we want to make sure we use every single flight that we possibly can. We want to maximize our cargo as much as we can, going back and forth between distribution centers and the airport.
So
A lot of trucking companies do that too, like on a daily basis now. Like they on the way back from stores, they try to bring goods back to like a distribution center or another place that they need to. They want to try and maximize the trip as much as they can. So we can kind of envision that within this airport and within this scenario.
Mhm. So it wouldn't have to come back to the airport right away. It could go from a distribution center to another distribution center or something like that. Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah. Yep. It could.
Yeah. I guess one other question about feasibility was, I understand why you would want to keep the passenger and the cargo side separate, which is pretty much, I think, standard in the industry. In most of the larger cargo hubs that are combined with passenger. Although a lot of the cargo does go on passenger airplanes, which is an interesting, probably little known fact outside the industry. So I was just wondering how you would coordinate with the passenger side of the terminal if they're on separate sides. You said something about a separate air traffic control. And I guess that feeds into a larger question of Chicago being a very, very congested, heavily populated area. What's the feasibility of operating these pieces of equipment in that kind of an environment? A very dense air environment, air transportation environment.
I think you would have to look a lot at the scheduling of these eVTOLs and a lot of the scheduling of the other airplanes that come in and out of the airport, because I think that's very important. Looking at the different times, I mean, both air controller towers can kind of communicate with each other and kind of can come up with a schedule that works very nicely within the airport. Communication is definitely key. Having communication within the airport is definitely key because you want to be communicative so everyone's on the same page. But having that knowledge of having like the schedule for everything within the airport would also just be nice to know. So the air is not very congested with a bunch of different airplanes and flying, eVTOLs in the air. I hope that answers the question.
Well, I guess I was thinking there are two other airports in the Chicago two other big airports. There's Midway and O'Hare and I think that maybe the busiest airport in North America, or one of the busiest. So there's a lot of airplanes flying around Chicago. So how would this be coordinated with that?
I would think just again, like communicating with those airports too. I see South Suburban Airport being more of a cargo-based airport and less than a passenger one. And I could see O'Hare or Midway airports becoming more passenger heavy in a way. And just kind of South Suburban Airport would take a lot of the cargo out of like the inner Chicago region and just kind of move it towards the outside. That's my vision of the project, at least, or my vision of the case study, because I think that would significantly ease traffic in the air. Go ahead, Emily.
Sorry. The eVTOLs are also, they don't fly as high as your standard airplane. So a lot, like I feel like at every airport, even without eVTOLs, the most dangerous part is takeoff and landing. That's where everything kind of could get jumbled up. So I feel like once all of the other airplanes are up in the air, it'd be a lot safer because the eVTOLs are a lot lower than your regular airplane.
Thanks very much. Very interesting. Chung, did you have anything you wanted to ask?
Yeah, I just want to maybe add to what you were talking about. And one of the ideas of this project was that, because there is O'Hare and Midway, and O'Hare actually one of the busiest airports in North America as far as cargo. And like you said, a lot of this cargo comes on passenger planes. They're not on cargo planes, on the belly of the passenger planes. So how do you envision integration with SSA, with O'Hare, and Midway into working with them as well? Because it makes sense because they're within the range of flight of the eVTOLs. So did you do any research? Is there any regulations now about flight paths of eVTOLs versus passenger airplanes, and are they allowed to be flying near airports? I think that would be a major hurdle if that was the case. What role it could play.
I've seen there's a lot of I want to say almost confusion or unexplored areas within regulations and rules for the eVTOLs right now. I mean, the Federal Aviation Authority within the United States is constantly changing their procedures when it comes to these eVTOLs because it's such a new technology. They're incorporating different companies, different customers, different agencies throughout the world, and they're working together to kind of come up with a proper procedure for this. So I think incorporating that is very important, and considering different passenger planes and considering that, and the communication between the different airports. That's something that they need to further explore a little bit more. I didn't really see much of that when I was doing the research, at least on my side of things. But I can definitely see there being maybe even a small sector of O'Hare or Midway Airport where they incorporate the eVTOLs. And maybe the eVTOLs can go back and forth between O'Hare and Midway and between South Suburban Airport. I mean, that could be a game changer too when transporting goods back and forth between the multiple airports. I think the overall goal is to try and reduce the truck traffic that currently has. So that I can definitely see the region using more eVTOLs because they want to reduce the truck traffic, which makes a lot of the people happier and the citizens of Chicago happier, but it also helps our planet too, because you're not having a lot of those carbon emissions being released from those trucks. So I can definitely see them kind of communicating with each other and kind of figuring it out, having eVTOLs fly from airport to airport if they need to, maybe having a separate route involved. That's different from going to distribution centers. But that's something that they all need to figure out collaboratively and come together. And I've seen a little bit of that through the procedures and policies that I explored on the international level and then also on the Federal Aviation Authority level. Seems like there's a lot of collaboration happening between a lot of companies and governments.
I also understand that companies like FedEx, UPS, etc., have been testing them. Have you read any updates on how they're going and what they're using them for, and are they being successful?
It seems like they've been pretty successful in other regions. I know that one region or one factor that they're struggling on is cold weather and wind impacts, which is something that we've mentioned in our PowerPoint. That's something that the many eVTOL companies still need to explore. But there's been initiatives before where they've tested it in various cities. I know in the US, they've tested it in Los Angeles, New York. New York could be similar to Chicago, but I think they tested it within the summer or springtime. They've also tested it down in Florida, I believe, too. So they definitely have been testing it out. And it seems like it's working. I know they've used a lot of this technology for last mile delivery, too. And that's been very successful. Companies like Amazon have been using drones to deliver goods and products throughout the whole country, too. And they've been doing it in one specific town, too, down in Texas, I believe. So there's been a lot of technology advancements in last mile transportation. And I think they're just trying to make it into a bigger deal now with the middle mile.
Okay, well, thank you very much. I don't have any other questions. It's a very interesting presentation. Thank you all. Thank you, Richard, for being here. And the best of luck. We'll see the results in about a week.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.